Good evening. Welcome to Silver Slumbers, a channel where I'm tasked to help you get those soothing Z's that you deserve. So I went ahead and played around with my microphone settings. This is the Elgato brand. Thank you, Phoenix Fire. And I'm just toying with it, and I think I got it to sound a little better. If you guys disagree, please let me know in the comments. In the very beginning of this video, you're going to hear my old settings, and I think about maybe 15 or 10 minutes in, you're going to hear a little change. Hopefully it's not too distracting. If you have a personal horror story yourself and want to share anonymously, please send it to me at silverscarystories@gmail.com. I'll be sure to leave that in the descriptions, and I'll put it on screen right now. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any videos like these. And watch my playlist on my playlist tab to get hours of content to sleep through. In today's video, I'm going to be reading True Scary Stories, Volume 6. So sit back, relax, and close those eyes. And remember, don't get lost in the dark. Warning: some of these stories contain graphic content. Listener's discretion is advised. Some background. I, 28 female, am a dog walker pet sitter. Some of the dogs I walked have reactivity, as did this one dog, a pit lab mix. She used to be a really bad puller, along with being incredibly reactive to other dogs on leash, so as soon as she sees them, it takes a lot of work just to train her. She has come a long way with her reactivity, to the point that it's really not an issue anymore, even when others carelessly allow their dogs to get too close for comfort. On this one walk, she was a dream the entire time. She passed multiple dogs without any issue. She would just look at me for her treat because she knew that she was being good. We turned down a side street that looked completely vacant at that time, so I can give her more time to relax during her walking time. And all went well for a while, not a soul in sight. Until there was. While I'm usually pretty good at keep my head on a swivel, as some of my walks are not the safest areas of the city, this guy took me by surprise. I don't know how he did it, but he got about 2 or 3 feet behind us without my dog or me noticing that he was there, and all of a sudden shouted something unintelligible. I could only make out the last 2 words that he said. "Your dog." Immediately, my dog, with no prior history of human reactivity, got between us and started growling, snapping and lunging aggressively at this man. I'm a smaller woman at 5'3", and I guess this guy was probably 6'7", at the very least, and incredibly muscular. As soon as he saw my dog was trying to attack him, and me struggling to hold him back, he threw his arms up and bolted across the street without another word. He disappeared shortly around the corner. I've never praised a dog for reactivity until that very moment. I gave her all the treats I had in my pocket. I took her home and told her owner what just happened and how her dog might have just saved my life. Of course, I hope I'm wrong, but the guy was just either slow with social cues, but I don't know. But neither the dog nor I got that impression. Needless to say that she's by far my favorite client dog. I go on walks with her still every single week, but we haven't gone down that street ever again. While there's no people about, I'm just beyond blessed to have her, and I get to walk with her weekly. But I do hope, and I mean really hope, that I never meet the "your dog" guy ever again. Strange encounters while living in a tent in the Pine Barrens. Just so you know that I was homeless for a few years from 18 to 21, and I used to stay in a tent with my ex. I always had to end up moving my tent spot, eventually because the cops would find us. Either way, I had to spend a lot of time in the woods at night. One night, when walking back to my tent, I heard something down the trail a bit. I shined my light in the direction of the sound, to be met by glowing, reflecting eyes from my flashlight. However, where the eyes were made it so whatever I was looking at was taller than me, and I'm 5'8". There was no animal that tall in my area. I turned to my ex and told him to start going to the tent faster. He could tell that something was off, so he asked if I was okay. I told him I'll tell him when we get to the tent, because I've always been told to not acknowledge such creatures/spirits as it gives them more power. Then, some nights later, there would be some smacking sounds on our tent. It would all hit the sides of the tent. We would look at our tent windows and check outside of the tent, but we never found anything or hear any kind of footsteps. During the summer, we had decided to go for a small hike at night because it was way more of a tolerable temperature. About 15 minutes into the hike, I had started feeling a bit paranoid, like I was being watched. About 5 minutes later, I heard a crazy laugh coming from somewhere in the woods. I couldn't pinpoint which direction though. My ex asked me, what the hell was that? And I loudly said, I don't know. And what the F it is, it needs to stop. As soon as I said this, multiple crazy laughs started again. My ex and I turned around and walked back for what felt like the longest 20 minutes of my life. Another time, I found a severed coyote head with something hung in the tree beside it. It had a tooth. And lastly, one time I was with my friend parked in the road far into the woods so we can, smoke. The passenger window was down, which is where I was sitting. The woods were right next to me. Again, the feeling of being watched overwhelmed me. 2 minutes or so later, I heard a hello, and then John coming from the woods. I tell my friend to turn around and we need to leave. I didn't tell her why because, like I said, I don't like to acknowledge these things until I'm very far away from them. That's all that immediately comes to mind at this moment. Thank you for reading. I am a 21-year-old girl taking her first backpack trip around the world. I only arrived in Thailand 2 days ago, and it was unfortunate that I almost got kidnapped on my very first night. I went to Bangla Road, which is well known and had a very few beer bars. Then we went to a very popular club, Illusion. I was having a good time, dancing and meeting people. In the club I only had 3 drinks, tequila and some orange juice. But at some point I realized that I was a bit more drunk than expected. I don't know if my drink was spiked, but I was dumb and had my drink left on the table next to me while I was out dancing in a very crowded area. In total, over the space of, maybe 3 hours, I'd only had 2 beers and 3 tequilas. Usually that's an okay amount for me to be more aware of my surroundings. I went to the bathroom and felt very intoxicated, so I just threw up. Upon leaving the bathroom, a guy who I obviously don't know just grabbed my arm. He seemed really young, so I asked him what he was doing. He said he would give me help down the stairs. I don't know how, but I spaced out, and I found myself walking down the road. And then I was being dragged down the alley. I spaced out again, and now I'm in some kind of car. I was really scared at this point, and didn't know how I got myself into this very bad situation so quickly. I am very small and not very strong, so it was easy for him to take control of me. He started driving, and I kept saying, no, 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 no. And to stop, he would just said, don't worry, I'm taking you somewhere where you're safe, which is just scary itself from what he was saying. I had maps open on my phone, and we were driving out of Patong. Finally, after some time, I started telling him that I was about to throw up all over him and his car if he didn't pull over. This seemed to annoy him, and he got to pull over. The second he stopped the car, I got out and ran down the street. Luckily, there was a motorbike taxi who asked if I needed a ride, and I just jumped in and told him where the hotel was. I could see the guy walking down the road after me as we sped away. I made it back to my hotel safely. Honestly, after that, I'm not gonna go to any more bars anymore or clubs by myself. I just don't trust anyone. I just felt very vulnerable. At least this was a lesson that I just need to be a lot more careful. I'm just glad that I made it out. Okay. This is a real story that's happening now, but this really started on my birthday. I already spoke to the cops about this. Now I'm just open up to you guys so I can hear your takes on this. It's pretty frightening. Here's some quick backstory. I'm 27 female. I live with a roommate named Julia and her boyfriend. About a year ago, Julia and I started to hang out at this spot. We both met a woman working there around our same age. Her name was Sam. Julia and I stopped going there after a while, but I stayed friends with Sam. We're not super close, but I did see her like once every couple of weeks. She supported my business, brought me small gifts, and invited me over to places over the course of the year. I do enjoy being friends with her. On my birthday, Sam and other friends posted my photo on social media. That's when I get a message from an account that I don't know, asking me to message them back and discuss a film opportunity. Half curious, I just responded. They say a bunch of things, but to finally come out and say that they are casting adult film stars. They quoted me a very large amount of money. He says it's very private. These adult films are sold overseas. I politely declined them. Honestly, I chuckled at it. By the way, they're not Googleable. There's nothing on their social media page or anything about their production company online. The person messaging me insists that I text their female reference. Curiosity gets the best of me because I did that. This female reference weirds me out. She's normal at first, but seems too excited about the actual job. She's encouraging me to do my casting with the person I messaged to, saying that I'm a very, very lucky person that she even offered it to. She also added that he also only offered this to a few other girls. I'm thinking this in my head. No woman in the film industry really feels this excited, happy, or satisfied with this at all. I'm weirded out, so I just blocked her. This so-called agent from this company messaged me and asked me if we talked. I said yes, but I declined again, and now he's blocked too. I'm embarrassed that I even considered. But then, a couple of days later, my roommate shows me a weird text to her personal number. It's the same people that offer her the similar offer. They say, though, "We found you on the list. You must have signed up." I'm sure my roommate did no such thing. I'll say this right here. Nobody knows about this, just only myself and my roommate. My roommate told me what happened to her. About this message, I'm just confused as she was. For the next 4 months or so, I get text messages, all different kinds. All of them basically saying, "Yes, this is not Googleable adult film company here, so we're so sorry about the mix-up." I answer some nice, I answer some mean, and some of them I just ignore them completely. I never ask for photos, information, anything really except to consider the offer. Maybe come for a drink to discuss in person. That's it. Until yesterday. Sam sends me a message on social media. It's a group chat with a profile picture that I've never seen, plus Sam, plus my business profile. I do creative team building work. Sam wants to introduce me to her friend, Dave. Now, Dave needs to hire a team builder at a fancy hotel that's about an hour drive from me. Sam makes the introductions. I say thank you. Then Sam leaves the group chat. Dave's profile is just empty. Sam messaged me privately and says basically, "I used to casually see this guy. He's good for the job. He's pretty wealthy and I know he owns multiple businesses. He used to be in the adult film productions, but I think he's been done with that for a while. And this would be a different business he has. Other than that, he's just a normal dude." I messaged the man back and asked, What's the company, and can I have a website or some pages or any info about it? He says he will launch the website at the event that I'm being hired for, and that he just bought the company and is being branded. But Sam is messaging me too. She says that he's selling the company, and this 2-day hotel event is for the farewell party. She suggests that I bring my boyfriend since it would be all expenses paid stay. Also, she mentioned that she's going to visit an old friend tonight to catch up over some drinks. She says she hasn't seen him in a long time. Alright, this is weird as heck. The guy has messaged me along the lines of, "Sorry, I know this is weird. Feel free to bring your boyfriend." What? And he also mentions how he was seeing my friend tonight. Left him on red until that morning. Send him the original weird adult film account and say, "Is this you?" They say, "Nope." And I said, "Yeah, okay." They responded thumbs up and left the chat. I had mentioned to Sam months ago about the weird offer and text messages that I got. She too said that she got these bizarre messages in the past. They only stopped when she said that she would call the police. She didn't offer more details about it, but was driving, so I just didn't push it. So now, I message Sam, and I say straight up, "Sam, I think this is the person that's been harassing me with multiple different numbers." She acts weirded out and surprised. Asks about the original account that messaged me. Eventually, she closed the conversation and goes to bed. Left her on red. I don't answer her calls the next day, and she texts me, "That was weird last night, LOL. Call me if you want to chat because I'm confused." I don't respond. Today, she texts me, "Okay." I wrote her back, basically saying, "Listen, I've been weirded out about this whole thing, and I've been wondering if someone's been trying to abduct me. And now, wondering if you're involved, either incorrectly or not. It's just too much for me." She wrote me back saying more or less that she understands that it's a weird and scary situation, but she thinks that I'm overreacting, and basically seemed offended that I could even think such a thing. She also said that she wouldn't ever want to speak with someone who could ever think that about her. She left it with that, and she lives her life on a straight path, and can't let anyone try to drag her into something like that. I don't know if you guys know this, but you can use a free website online to insert photos of someone, and it will just generate a page on the internet that's matched based on facial recognition. When I began having this fear of her involvement, I searched her and found what I am 99.9% sure was thumbnails of her in adult film. It's either her or a splitting image, as it's also pulled known photos of her. I didn't say this to her, of course. She knows. But the last statement she gave me is extra weird, knowing all that. So that's my story. Hopefully they don't get me, and I'm not the one to be played with. This may be a ramble of thoughts, but after recently stumbling onto the sub, I finally felt the place that I could offer something that my family and I experienced a few years ago. To this day, it still gives me shivers. I have been camping, solo backpacking, and hunting my entire life in Oregon. I just feel comfortable in the woods and have a deep respect for nature. A few years ago, my wife, daughter, and 2 German Shepherds went camping north to Mount Jefferson, Oregon. I have included the coordinates of our campsite, which we found to be a perfect setup for our dogs, who need the privacy since they are intimidating to other dog owners, and they can be very loud when they're spooked. It was not an established campsite, just a nice horseshoe off the USFS road that had flat ground full of trees, and a fire pit. The first night my daughter wanted to sleep by herself in a 2-man tent right next to ours. It was maybe 2 feet away from me and my wife's tent. We made the male German Shepherd sleep, Guts was his name, in her tent. That whole first night, neither my wife and I could sleep. We both heard footsteps and they were heavy. Not like the typical critters scampering around the night. I was well armed because I was paranoid from reading recently before departing about a dad in California who was shot and killed in a tent next to his 2 infant daughters. Needless to say, both my wife and I had 2 pistols and my rifle with me. The dogs are great at detection, and that is why I felt my daughter could sleep alone because Guts is completely fearless, and nothing would lay a hand on her without a battle to the death. All in all, nothing but bad vibes and loud footsteps occurred that night, which I ultimately decide was a deer or maybe an elk. Day 2, morning. We go for a walk down the road, and maybe 300 feet away, I see an abandoned road where a rusted gatepost was covered in vegetation. Something of a blue color caught my eyes, and Guts immediately takes off running down the road. My heart begins to race because I think it's another family camping like us, and he's going to get himself shot or scare some innocent people to death. So I chased after him as fast as I could. The rest followed. He stopped about 20 feet into the road, and me yelling his name, but I covered just enough distance to see that there was nobody there, and something is off about the sight. I yell, "Hello, is anyone there? Sorry about the dog." I got no response. My curiosity gets the best of me, and I had to see the site conditions were. As I get closer, I know something is wrong. It had all the necessities for a camping site, including a cooler, propane burner, tent, blankets, folding table, and every single item had been completely destroyed, smashed and torn from what appeared to be claw marks. We all walked around in circles, puzzled why anyone would leave their camping gear behind, including an expensive REI tent. I figured, well, someone left in a hurry and animals got to the rest as the only logical explanation. Still, a propane tank and cooler were flattened by something, and it certainly wasn't snowpacked with tree coverage in that spot. As the afternoon rolls in, me and my daughter were playing bocce ball at the campsite, and my wife goes walking maybe 70 feet north to do her business. I do not have a direct line of sight on her, but all of a sudden, I see Guts made a mad dash straight towards her. Normally, he would always be with me unless he gets called over, and she didn't call for him. His speed and focus caught my attention, and I knew something weird was happening. So I ran over there, and my wife starts jogging at me, and I immediately drew my pistol. Guts has completely continued running into the forest, maybe another 100 feet, before I call him back. He stopped. My other dog, Leia, who never misses the opportunity to be a pack leader, is not taking point. I've had her for maybe 7 years, and this was the first time in her life that she refused to leave my daughter's side. She was full, hair raised, and attached to us at the hip. Again, anytime we hike or play, Leia is in the front, bossing everything in our path, and pauses to look to see where we are, and continues. I asked my wife what happened, and she said, "I was trying to pee, and all of a sudden all my hair started to rise up. I know someone was watching me. And then I saw Guts running towards me. I just got up and ran towards you." We spent about maybe 10 minutes looking for signs of anything and saw no trails, broken branches, nothing to point out to what happened and where something went. We decided we were going to spend one more night since it's already too late to pack up, but we all will be in the big tent together. Before we go to bed, I put a rope with a makeshift coin alarm around the perimeter of our campsite. I used a mint can and some coins and keys from our truck and zip tied it so anything that hits the rope will give this a little jingle. Very unsophisticated, but it put my wife at ease. As I go to tie my last corner off the tree near our tent, our third mystery item unveils itself. It looks like someone has done the exact same thing that I have done with the rope, but this one was just so old and brown that I just didn't see it at first. It was broken and only a very few things remained. Sure enough, it was tied at roughly the same height, approximately 8 to 10 inches off the ground. It even had a few rust washers on it. I immediately felt someone had stayed here way before and put the same makeshift warning system on the same tree that I am maybe 10 to 15 years ago, based on the condition of the rope. Perhaps my paranoia has now just reached a new height, but I had to make sure the girls felt like that we were safe, And at the time, the only thing I think of was when the evening came, I made him sit in the truck, fired a clip on my .45 caliber. I shot into the dirt as a signal to whatever was out there knows that I was armed. I reassured to the girls that anyone was listening knows that we have 2 wolves and that we were armed, and that we are just too risky of a target so we can safely sleep. That night, we heard no footsteps, and the dogs never perked up and bark. We left early the next morning. Fast forward to present day, and I watch Amazon's Missing 401 Hunted documentary, and I notice the cluster smack dab close to where we camped that weekend. A flood of dread rushes me as I think of the mystery abandoned campsite with the ripped tent and smashed cooler and cooktop. We had been camping since and have enjoyed the beauty of the NW, but there was something there at that place that possibly took or harmed someone else less than 300 feet away from where we camped. And we all thank our lucky stars. Guts was doing his thing so well that afternoon. This happened many years ago when I was about 10 or 11 years old. I wouldn't describe the area, wasn't some backwoods necessarily, but it was a wooded 100 plus acre ranch. The land is in the southwest part of the United States. My family owns the property, and we have family reunions every year, and all stay for about 5 days to camp. There's an area at the ranch where we all set up camp and cook and eat. Getting to that part of the ranch requires driving through small village and several gates, about 2 miles. The first gate beyond the village is slightly past a set of railroad tracks. That's a lot of description, but it's relevant later in the story. Because I've been camping at the ranch for a long time, as long as I can remember, and the land was private, my parents would allow me to go off on my own during the day as long as I didn't go too far. I'd spend some time walking around the campsite near our camp, just looking for arrowheads or trying to catch some tadpoles from the pond. On this day, I left the large campsite after lunch, which was around 11:30, and I told my mom I was going to the nearby creek. I planned on catching some tadpoles to bring it back to the camp and be back in time for a swimming trip with my cousins that they were planning. They want to go to the nearby river, and I really did not want to miss it. I made it down to the creek and got several tadpoles. I probably spent about 15 minutes down there. To get back to the camp, I would have to go either climb up a relatively steep embankment with a lot of loose rocks or circle around to a longer, larger route with a flat trail. I'd usually just go up the embankment, but this time I didn't have a water bottle to keep the tadpoles in, so I didn't want to risk dropping them or killing them by accident. I have never walked the long trail by myself, but I had did it with my dad, and I feel confident that I'll find my way back. As I walked back to the camp, I had my head down looking for arrowheads in the washout areas of the trail. I started feeling a little creeped out as I continued walking. We all know that feeling like someone's watching, but I just chalk it up of being spooked by being on the trail by myself. Now, the next part. I just can't explain this whatsoever, but I'm going to do the best I can. It's as if a light switch had turned on or someone snapped their fingers and I came back to reality. Except when I came to, I wasn't on the trail. Not the one I had been on before. I was near the railroad tracks and it was completely dark. My mom was standing in front of me, shaking my shoulders and yelling, "Where were you?" 2 things I really clearly remember about are the moments I came to are 1. The look of fear, anger, relief in my mother's tearful eyes as she was yelling at me. And 2, the confusion I felt about what the hell is going on. The last thing I remember was walking down the trail back to camp, and now suddenly it was dark, and I was on the trail tracks leading to the ranch, which is about 2 miles away. The best way I can describe it is to compare it to the movie The Butterfly Effect. The main character would be living in one moment and then suddenly he'd wake up somewhere entirely different. My parents drove me back to camp, and I learned that it was 12:30 p.m. This meant I had been gone for 11 hours, which I just cannot account for this day. My parents and all my family had understandably freaked the hell out of why I haven't returned to camp sooner. They had been looking for me all day. And I was a really good kid growing up, and I almost never broke any rules. So my parents were baffled at my behavior. I tried to explain to them that I had no memory of getting to the tracks, and they just didn't believe me. They thought maybe I got lost and was embarrassed to admit it. This was the only time I've experienced something like this. I can't explain it, so it's just really unsettling how I was not able to account for all those hours that I was gone. Was it coincidence that I had that creepy feeling on the trail and just lost 10 hours of my life? I wish I had the answers of what happened to me. Please tell me, has anyone ever had anything like this happen to them? I had people stalk and follow me before. Because of that, and my true crime addiction, I have become supremely paranoid and a solid current twitcher. I, 31 female, resided in an upstairs room that was my first room to myself as a child. I had to leave a bad situation and therefore end up back into my childhood home. For reference, when our house was built, we were told that the field to our left, with the horses at the barn at the time, would one day soon be a development. It was the year 2000, and when we were told that, it wasn't until the year 2022 that roads started to be formed and foundations laid. I already had someone follow me home before when I was young, but I was in a different bedroom next door. My parents put a free library that's right below my window, and nighttime security lights that are very bright and turn on when you're about 20-inch on the side of my house where my room was on. I'll admit, having an open field next to me so long made me accustomed to not having the curtains when I change, because there was never anyone to watch or peeping Tom on me. Now, there is. For the past 2 weeks, the burglar lights next to me to the free library have been going off late at night, because one side of the curtain is open so I can vape. That's the only reason I noticed it. I didn't think too much of it at first. We locked all the doors and windows every night, and I'm on the second floor. I always look out to see if there was a car, someone maybe walking their dog, or a deer, but only for me to see was nothing. To add, they put a crap ton of street lights in the area, so visibility was great, but it just kept happening. So last night, I did my usual and saw the lights come on out of my peripherals. I acted natural, giving out a full view of the window. I was going to bed. It was 3 in the morning. I turned off the TV, closed the window and the curtains, turning off the lights. Then, I ducked down, peering through the curtains of the side window below. I honestly think I was going to pass out after a few minutes, maybe 5. Someone then comes out of the side of my house, all silhouette, dressed in black. They kept their back turned on me until the light turned off, but I swear I could still see them standing there, looking up like they could still see me. I was creeped out. I called the police, but while I was on the phone with the operator, I saw him run off. There wasn't really anything I could do, except to say that they had a car, they just drove around, and I was just looking. My parents are asleep, and I know that I have to tell them tomorrow. This scares the crap out of me. Honestly, if this wasn't happening for a few weeks and it was just a solo event, I probably would have been fine about it, but the fact that the light was going on and off without me noticing any activity and what happened tonight, it makes me think that this person has just been watching me this entire time and just watching my house. To the person outside my window, please, let's never effing meet. Just a quick update. I did tell my parents at first and they just brushed it off, claiming that I had a couple of drinks and it was just late, so I probably just saw someone checking out the library. I then had another conversation about it with my dad, who said that there had been reports of the last weeks of car break-ins, and since my car is parked on the side of the street, right outside of my window, maybe they were trying to break into it. I pointed out that maybe he was just trying to get to my car. I mean, I got a few questions like, why was he pressed against the house where he wasn't visible from my window? And why did he had no point of going towards my car? I think that I freaked him out enough that we were going to go to potentially get a camera for the area. Given all the development happening around us, I think it's smart, even without this incident. Thank you for all your advice and your replies. I'll update it here again if anything else happens. Man, this week has just been hectic. My 3 kids had the flu. The oldest was the first. Then my younger two caught it. After a visit to the clinic, I was heading to the CVS down the street from our house. I decided last minute to drop off the kids at home with their dad so they can rest and I can just go inside the store and pick up some medicine. I have considered our neighborhood to be very safe, taken walks after dark and never felt afraid once. Most of our neighbors are older folks who have been there for over a decade. When I pull up to the CVS, I pull up to the side parallel to our street. It's darker on that side, but the entrance right around the corner was well lit. There was a man standing outside. He walked in front of my car and I could hear him talking, but music was kind of loud. I figured he was on the phone or something. No real flags yet. My husband called me as the man was walking back towards the corner adjacent to the entrance. I got out of my car, still on the phone, telling my husband, yeah, kiddos had the flu. I'm picking up some medicine from the CVS. In a very pleasant voice, the man says to me, hey, I got a question for you. You know where Main Street is? I'm assuming he's asking for directions or the location of something. I told him that I do. I'm still holding the phone to my ear. It's in a bright pink case, so I'm sure he could see it. This man is standing directly in front of me, and there is a pillar and a trash can behind him. Around the corner of the propane cage and a red box against the store wall. Getting past him would put me in arm's reach. Next, he asked for a ride there. It was a homeless shelter. It's very cold outside and he doesn't want to freeze. I empathize with this man, but I said I couldn't. I offered to buy him some gloves or a blanket, and I asked the employee at the store if they can help me out to give him a ride. Oh, sweet baby Jesus. This guy's face instantly changed to pure rage. Then, right back to pleasant. He said to me, well, you know what happens to homeless people stuck outside. You're gonna help me. It's right down the street. I'm standing there unsure what to do. My husband on the phone asking what's going on. I gently tell the man that I don't feel comfortable doing that and that I had the flu, which I lied. And my husband is on the phone with me. The man yelled, I don't care about the flu. Now he's getting more angry and not moving away from my route to the store. I didn't want to turn my back on him and go back to the car, which was several feet away, and it was completely in the dark. While this guy is glaring at me, I decided to quickly walk past him. I had my mask from the clinic in my jacket pocket, so I pulled it out and held it in front of me while I was moving towards the trash can. He looked disgusted but kept telling me that I needed to give him a ride. It's right down the street, he kept insisting. But I know where down the street is, and it's not as close as he says. He really did try to guilt me, and his words felt threatening, but he didn't really actually threaten me verbally. Once I was around the corner, I rushed into the store and straight into the pharmacy. My husband said he's calling the police. He heard the way the man was talking to me and said to stay in the store. My knees were shaking. I'm not usually this type of person to be so afraid when confronted, but when I got to the pharmacy, I interrupted the pharmacist and a customer. I deeply apologized to them and I told them what happened. The pharmacist sent the store manager out. He was a tall guy with a long beard. Looked like he didn't give a crap about people. The police had already arrived. The man was told to leave, which he did momentarily. He came back into the store, yelling bad things and saying stuff about me. Now the store manager told him to go F himself and that he's trespassing into private property. The cop came back to talk to me, and she told me that she arrested this man many times. He's loud and he enjoys to yell at people, but he isn't violent. The pharmacist had me hiding behind the screen where they gave out vaccines and left the half door to the pharmacy cracked open in case I need to get out of there. The cop had also told me the guy's first name and last name, as did the store manager. See, is this even normal? But anyways, the prescriptions are finally filled and I left the store. The police parked next to my car to keep an eye on me. Oh, and the man refused a ride from the cop to the shelter. Later I looked him up. His name is unique, so it was really easy to find him online. Surprise, surprise. He has a long record spanning 3 states and several counties. Tons of public intoxication charges, DWI, urinated in public, assault and battery, and a decent exposure. I also looked up the homeless shelter, and yeah, as I thought, there wasn't one that he wanted to take me to. Basically, it was a fake. But what makes it worse is that this area that he was describing, it's super sketchy. Earlier today, I went down to the corner store across from the CPS and told my friend, who was working overnight shift. I told her what happened. She told me that she kicks him out of the store every single time, and she always calls the police on him every single time she sees him because he just yells and threatens customers for no reason. But it just sucks because he just takes off right before the cops made it. Honestly, I knew I could have handled things better, but I was honestly blindsided from his instant shift from pleasant to full of rage. Big thank you to the pharmacy team who kept me safe, and the store manager for confronting this creep. They really didn't have to do that, but I'm very thankful, and my husband recognized that I was really unsafe in this situation, and thank him for calling the cops. Sadly, this man is still out there, somewhere, in my area. Thank you guys so much for listening to True Scary Stories, Volume 6. I hope you enjoyed that. Remember, if you have a personal scary story and you want to send it to me, send it to silversscarystories@gmail.com. If you wish to be anonymous, I will grant your wish. Also, I made a playlist for rain sleep videos, and I have a certain selected videos that I think will be ideal for a good night's sleep, because I am well over 8 hours of content that I can put into playlist. So go ahead and check out that tab. I'll have them named as 8+ hours of slumber videos. If you guys also enjoyed this audio, if you think I sound clearer, I sound better, then please let me know in the comments. Good night, farewell, and remember, don't get lost in the dark.